Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. It's Jo here. I hope you're all well. So for today's video, I'm going to spend some time working on my garden diorama. This was the finishing point in my last video. If you haven't seen that, I will add it into the description so you can find a link for it. And also I'm going to create a playlist called Wall Garden where you'll be able to find all past videos and future videos to do with this project. For my cobbles, I'm going to be using polystyrene cups. These are the same cups that I made the walls out of, and I'm just cutting them so that I can flatten it out so that I can mark out my cobblestones. And the cobblestones are going to be just over a 1/4 inch square. So I'm just going to start to draw these out by drawing vertical and horizontal lines to the size that I want. Like so, and then I'll cut them out until I've got a fair few, and then these are the cobblestones that I'm going to attach to the cardboard. Before I attach the cobblestones, I want to measure out where I want my raised beds. So this is the front of the diorama, and I would like 2 raised beds on either side with a small gap in the center, as I'm going to be adding something to this later on. So I'm going to make my raised beds 1 inch from the center of the garden, so that I've got enough space to be able to put some plants in, but not too much that they're too large. So I'm just measuring out my raised beds. I'm going to put 2 on the front. I'm going to put 1 on the side where the archway is into the garden. I'm going to put a large one at the back, and then I'm going to put a large one on the other side as well. So I'll have 5 raised beds in total, and I've just marked them on the cardboard so you can see where they are. So this is the 2 at the front. Then I've got 1 on the side where the arch is, so this is where the archway is, and then that's that raised bed. The large one right at the back, and then this one up the side as well. I'm going to measure out some strips on the card, and this is where I'm going to be gluing my cobblestones in. So I'm just going to measure all the way around and mark where my cobblestones are going to go, and this is just to make them a lot neater and a little bit easier to put them in place. So I'm going to do that, and then I will be back. So now that all the cardboard is completely marked out, I'm going to start to add my polystyrene cobbles. I'm using a paintbrush and PVA glue. I'm just going to do this section at a time, and I want to make sure that my cobbles are staggered and that there's a fair amount of glue on the cardboard so that they stick. And I'm going to spend a couple of days taking my time just filling this up with the cobblestones and then letting them dry. Now that the thing is completely covered with the cobblestones and I've let it dry, I'm going to now add a little bit of detail using some tin foil. So I'm just going to scrunch this up into a ball, and then I'm going to press this into the cobblestone, and this just gives it a little bit more detail and a bit of texture before painting. Once I'd completely covered all the cobblestones with the tin foil and all the dints are pressed in place where I wanted them, I'm now using a dark acrylic paint and I'm going to completely coat all the outside of the walled garden. So I want to make sure that I get in between all the gaps of the cobblestones. I want to make sure that the cardboard is completely covered, and then I'm going to let this dry, and while it's drying I'm going to start to work on the raised flower beds. So while the cobbles are drying, I'm going to work on the raised beds. I've measured out the size of one of the raised beds, and this is the size that I marked on the base before I had the cobblestones. I've got 5 raised beds of different sizes, so this is just one of them. But what I've done is I've cut that size out 6 times and I'm going to glue these together. I'm doing it this way because there's going to be quite a lot of weight on the top of these raised beds, because a lot of the stuff that I'm going to be making is going to be made out of clay, and when clay dries it gets quite heavy, so I wanted to make sure that they would stay upright and stand in place, and this was the best way that I came up with doing them. So I'm going to do this for each of the raised beds, 6 pieces of cardboard glued together in the size that I need. So now that I've got my 6 pieces glued together, I'm just measuring the front and the 2 ends, and this is because I want to cut another piece of cardboard so that I can cover the front and the 2 ends, and this is because I'm going to be adding bricks to it and I wanted a smooth surface. I've made the ends and the front piece a little bit larger than the actual size of the measurement of the front, and this is because I'm going to be adding some brown flock as soil, and I wanted to have a little bit of depth to it. So I'm just going to glue this, making sure that I've got a little lip over the top of it so that I can pop my soil in at a later date. Now that I have one raised flower bed, I've made the other 4 as well. So I've got 3 smaller ones, and then I've got the 2 larger ones, and then these all now need to be covered in little polystyrene bricks. I'm going to do exactly the same as I did for making the walls. I'm using PVA glue, and I'm just going to coat the cardboard, and then I'm using the same bricks that I used for the wall. And these are 1/2 centimetre by just over 1/4 of an inch, and I'm just going to glue these in place along the front of each of the raised bed and also at the ends as well to finish it off. So now the raised beds are drying, I'm going to start to add some lighter greys to these cobblestones. So the grey that I used as a base coat is now dry. So for my lighter shades of grey, I'm going to be using a sponge so that I don't cover all the dark grey in between the gaps of the cobblestones. I'm going to start by just adding a little bit of white into the grey paint I already had. And then every layer I'm going to put more white paint into it so that I get a lighter grey. I'm going to keep building up this colour. I've just done my first coat of a different colour there, and now I'm doing a lighter grey. I'm just going to continue to do this until I get the colour that I'm happy with. I didn't film the whole process of painting these. It took me 2 days to get them the colour that I wanted. So I've just shown you that you start with your darkest grey first, and then use the next lightest colour, and then go lighter again, and keep repeating the process. And each time that you go lighter, you use less paint in more different spots so that you're not just completely covering all the paint that you've put in place. So I'm going to continue to do that, let it dry, and then we can continue to work on the raised beds. So now that all the bricks are in place on the front and the sides, I want to add a row of bricks around the front and the sides at the top, and this is just to finish it off. I'm going to use my glue gun for this because there's not a lot of space to put the glue, and it's just a quick, easy way of doing this. I'm going to match the bricks up in size to the bricks that are on the front, and I'm going to do this with all the raised beds. Once I've done this, I'm going to use the tin foil to put the detail into the bricks, exactly the same way that I did the cobblestones and my garden walls. And then I can start to paint. Now I'm going to do the paint, I'm going to do the same grey as I did the brick walls as the mortar. And then I'm going to do the brickwork red to match the brick walls of the garden. When I finished painting them all grey and let them dry, and I got my paints out to start painting these, I realised that I was missing one colour of the reds that I used in the brick walls. And unfortunately, that shop is closed at the moment while we're in lockdown, so I won't be able to get the red that I wanted. So I'm going to have to leave painting them until everything opens again on the 2nd of December, and I can pick up some more of that colour. So for now, I'm just coating them in grey paint, and that's going to be it for this video. So I managed to get a little bit of work done on the garden diorama. I know it doesn't look like I've done much, but it really is time consuming, especially measuring all the bricks out and cutting them out and then gluing them and waiting for them to dry, and all the time waiting for the paint to dry in between the layers of grey that I did on the cobblestone. So I worked on this pretty much solid for the last week, and I have spent a lot of hours on it, but I am really enjoying how it's turned out, and I can't wait to actually get these painted in the same brick colour as the garden walls, and then I get to start to add the plants. So we'll show you where we're up to. So this is going to be the finishing point for now, and I'm really happy with how it's turning out. Like I said, I need to paint the raised beds the same colour as the walls once I get the paint that I need. I've left quite a lot of gap in between the cobblestones because I'm going to be adding quite a lot of moss and soil and bits and bobs to make it look more realistic. So that will be in the next video, and I'm really happy with how it's turned out. I can't wait to start making some plants to put in these raised beds. I think I might have to extend the pathway a little bit more around the outside that I've already done because it is a little bit shorter than I wanted, but I'll do that at a later date. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed the video. There's still lots to do in this. It's going to be absolutely jam-packed with stuff. There's all sorts of things that I want to do. I want to do a raw iron fencing, well, something that looks like raw iron anyway, and do that all the way around the outside of the cobble street. So that's a part of a plan. I've got to make all the plants. I'm going to make some lights as well for each corner and some wall lights. And then there's a lot of other different things that I need to do. I've got all the climbing plants. I've got to add all the moss and everything to the brick walls, and then I've got all the plants to put around the outside and then the inside as well. So I will be back on Friday with another video. So till then, take care. Bye for now.